Well, joining me now is someone who's been in the heat of all this and knows much, much more than I do about it. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Sir, appreciate you being here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Now, I want to make it clear to your audience, being in the middle of it doesn't mean that I've been arrested for cocaine or hookers or a lot of the things that are whirling around Hunter Biden. But this is one of the most incredible days I have seen in the political news world in a long time. And I think people were shocked that the judge looked at all that was before her and said, not in my courtroom, this isn't going down that way.
Yeah, right. Well, the other big thing, too, is when they walked in there, they were like, hey, Mr. Prosecutor, you can't ask me to decide whether or not to prosecute this. That's your job. Like, are we dealing with amateurs here?
No, we're dealing with highly skilled political operatives who have forsaken the law in order to protect the Biden crime family. And that's what's really disgusting. You mentioned it a moment ago in your monologue, Carl, that people are genuinely disgusted with what we have, and that's a two-tier system of justice. There's one system for people well-connected, like the Bidens, and then there's another system, maybe I should say there are three. There's another system for just average Joes, and then there is a third system for anybody who is an America First. We like to sometimes be called MAGA Republicans.
Extreme MAGA
Republicans. A term of derision for some. I'm happy to be one of those. I consider it a point of great personal pride to be called that. But there's a totally different justice system where the FBI raids people's homes, they lock you up and put you in handcuffs in public places just to humiliate you. And I think there's a real sense that people, even who don't support Donald Trump or the America First agenda, they understand this is to the destruction of our country if we don't stop it.
Governor, but, we're going to get to the legal side. We got a bunch of prosecutors coming in to talk about this. But I want to get the political side from you because, obviously you've been through political processes like this before where you see attacks from one side or the other, but never like, this type of judicial misconduct, or not judicial misconduct, but criminal misconduct potentially. The issue is now if this goes to trial, it's going to drag out maybe even past the election. What happens when there's discovery going on and you have, look, they're indicting Donald Trump every Monday, it feels like. What are they going to do in an election when the president's son is potentially the pivot point for the current president's problems that could be international influence versus charging Donald Trump with whatever the flavor of the day is?
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump, they say, had a few boxes of papers. Boy, that's a crime that people really care about. What we're talking about here is tens of millions of dollars in foreign money put into the pockets, not just of Hunter and his pals, but of Joe Biden. And I hope people never forget that this is really not about the drug-addled, deadbeat, doesn't even acknowledge his own child's son, Hunter, who gets $800,000 for blowing paint through a straw like he's some kind of Picasso.
And then the person gets a position.
This is not about Hunter. Yeah, that's right. But he's very skilled with the straw. That's why he does his artwork that way. No, but this is about Joe Biden. This is about the fact that Hunter used his dad. But let's be clear, his dad used Hunter in order to get this kind of money, according to evidence that keeps just dripping out from whistleblowers and from the FBI reports.
Sure. Well, Governor, your daughter, who's now the current governor of Arkansas, holding your former seat, she was obviously press secretary, did a fantastic job. If she had given some answers like KJP, like this one right here, roll this.
The president has previously said that he has never discussed overseas business dealings with his son, but the White House now says that the president has never been in business with his son. So why the updated language? Which statement is true? Or is this semantics and they're both true?
As I stated on Monday, when I was asked this question multiple times, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed on this. Nothing has changed on this. And so could ask me a million different ways. On this question, nothing has changed.
Well, it did change, Governor. It went from never spoken to him to not in business.
Yeah, it's changed every time. And I think that if this had been in the Trump White House, those press people would have stormed the podium and beaten the press secretary in the head with a microphone. But I will say, to their credit, they're beginning to start actually asking questions. I thought it would never happen. But how can they ignore what's going on right in front of their faces? And I realize they'd love to be part of the cover-up. They'd love to make sure that Joe Biden doesn't have any flies on him, but they can't help it. There's just too much evidence, and they're going to have to start acknowledging, they're going to have to start doing their job, something they haven't done so far.
Yeah, well, even the rats flee the ship. So, Governor Huckabee, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl.